Greetings, adventurers, and welcome back to Abnormal Voyages. My name is David, and today we find ourselves in Muscatine, Iowa. We're here at a little hidden gem of a museum that's all about something that you may be very familiar with: buttons. In particular, pearl buttons. We're here at the National Pearl Button Museum to learn all about these useful little guys. Come tag along.
We're going to a place that you've never heard of before. It's Abnormal Voyages. You're gonna learn something new. We're gonna open new doors. It's Abnormal Voyages.
So we're now inside the Pearl Button Museum, and we're going to get into what exactly they are and all about them. But to begin, we actually have to have a little bit of a biology lesson. What exactly are mussels, and how do they factor into all this? Well, let's find out. Mussels are fascinating little guys that are considered part of a group of animals referred to as mollusks. Further on from mollusks, they are classified down to a group that is called bivalves. Now, this group does contain things such as oysters, clams, and mussels. The bivalve just means that they have two hard shells. So when you pick them up, they're going to have the two shells, and it opens up inside to show you that really nice soft body of the mussel. Around it is the hard exoskeleton, and this exoskeleton is what pearl buttons come from. Now, while you can find oysters and such in the ocean, these mussels that were used for pearl buttons are freshwater mussels, so they're found in rivers and other fresh flowing water. Now, a lot of people may not know this, but mussels are actually extremely important for the ecosystem of a healthy river. They happen to filter through lots of water, and in one day, a full-grown mussel actually filters about 10 to 15 gallons of water. It's taking out a lot of harmful bacteria such as E. coli and letting all that nice, clean water continue on. Unfortunately, quite a few varieties of these mussels are either extinct or endangered at this point. A lot of pollution that's gone into the rivers has kind of stopped them from being able to make the comeback that we wanted them to. And unfortunately, pearl button harvesting did play kind of a big part in reducing their numbers. But speaking of pearl buttons, let's get into how that all got started. Checking out this map here, you can see where there are lots of little pockets of these mussels, and in particular, the Mississippi River was chock full of them. In 1888, a man from Germany named John Bopel heard about this. He happened to be a button maker there. He would carve them out of animal horns and things like that. But he believed that the shiny inner shell of these mussels would make for beautiful buttons that he could sell and make a fortune on. Soon enough, he was out there putting his plan in motion, catching mussels, polishing them up, and creating beautiful buttons. His home base was right here in Muscatine, which would soon be known as the Pearl City. Once they had the clams, they realized it's kind of difficult to get in there. So they decided to start steaming them. They were careful not to oversteam them because that might damage the shells of the mussel, but it would kill the mussel inside and leave it nice and easy to open up. Here's an example of a huge vat used to steam. Here's a rough idea of what the very first pearl button bits kind of looked like. They would be punched out of these shells, and then that would be turned into the button. Let's look at this a little more in depth. In the early days of this industry, when pearl buttons were starting to kind of take off, people brought in tools to make the process a little easier. So, in the beginning, they would have it such like this. You could clamp the shell, and then they would literally use tools like this to punch out holes. Those would look very similar to this here. They would grind down and sand off the rough edges until it was nice and shiny on both sides, and then that could be turned into a button. To make this a little easier, they brought in more tools as technology evolved, such as this here could make faster, easier holes, very similar to this here. And that way, they were getting more buttons. Now, as more buttons came out, it became more of the fad. It became the cool thing to have lots of buttons, such as this lovely outfit here. And when something becomes popular, you can charge more for it. So of course they wanted to make as many as they could to get as much money as possible. This eventually led to them making tools specifically for creating these buttons. This is the Ocean Pearl Button Cutter. This was made specifically to create buttons. And of course, as technology kept evolving, so did the way that we get buttons.
People up and down the Mississippi River soon caught on to the Mussels button industry. However, Muscatine, that had started it all, was still the most popular and had the most buttons flying out of the Pearl City. In 1898, Iowa churned out over 138 million buttons, and eventually they would put out more than 1.5 billion mother of pearl buttons every year. That is a lot of buttons. To meet the demand and to maximize profits, factories sprung up, and a lot of the workers in these factories happened to be women. This was actually a really good opportunity as far as jobs went for women to get in there and make some money. Typically, women would be hired to be facers, drillers, packers, a lot of the key parts of the button production. Only men, though, could be hired to be cutters, which was actually cutting the circular pieces out of the shells. Cutters would make about $8 to $10 a week, which was considered pretty good pay at the time, whereas the positions filled by women that were a little lower, not as skilled, those paid about $4 to $6 a week. Definitely doesn't sound like a lot now, but that wasn't really bad money back then. It was pretty decent and gave them a chance to save that away and help provide for their families.
One of the important things to do in the button factory was counting the buttons out into grosses. A gross of buttons was 144. As you can imagine, that probably got pretty tedious counting 1, 2, 3. They knew they couldn't do that. That's where this clever tool came into use. I'm going to show you how they used it. Let's say you had a vat full of buttons, just like this one here. This tool could go in and you would fill up the buttons into here. Once this was filled, you knew that you had an entire gross, 144. So you would scoop it into the buttons like this, and then as it came out, they would all start to kind of filter in there and fill up those holes. You would do this a couple of times, and eventually you'd have a whole gross of buttons. Then you could just scoop them into your boxes and get your next gross ready to go.
And though factory work definitely wasn't the most fun, they did what they could to make it a little more social, and pearl buttons honestly were a cultural revolution of sorts. So a lot of the women that worked at the factories would be in bowling leagues, basketball games. They even had a pageant of sorts where a woman could become the Pearl Button Queen. Definitely an impressive title. It's safe to say that pearl button fever was in high swing, and everybody loved them. Everywhere you went, you'd see them on the most fashionable of clothing items. Now, of course, a lot of artistry went into this. Some people would sometimes keep the shell and do little paintings, or they would start to color the shells to give them different looks, and they would appeal to all sorts of people all around the world. Here are actually art pieces that were created with bits of the same mussel shells. I like the American flag here. They did kind of that old colonial one. Very, very nice. But when you went to purchase your buttons, you would see displays like this. These would show you all the different varieties, all the different colors, basically any kind of button or button-related product you may want. Chances are they had it for sale. You can understand why it became such a fashion staple, because all these choices, you could always look different and style your buttons differently depending on what kind of outfit you wanted to wear. So walking into a store, it really wasn't that out of place to see display cases of beautiful buttons just like this, and most of them made right here in Iowa.
As we all know, buttons come in a huge variety of colors, shapes, sizes. These are some old advertisements here where you could spin this wheel to find the perfect button just for you. And they have collected here some really cool books. And these binders are filled with all the different kind of button advertisements they had back then. This gave you a chance to kind of preview the buttons before you bought them and had them put into your clothes. Button industry was huge.
Now, chances are, if you're watching this, all of this is probably pretty new to you. This isn't really a piece of history that's super well known. And walking through here, it just kind of reminded me that it's crazy how little things like this that most people wouldn't even think about could have massive pages of history, so much behind it, and be big cultural important things that we've just kind of forgotten about. So even though this little town in Iowa is somewhere that most people are never going to go, they happen to have this museum that celebrates this shining moment of history and the importance they had on the world. It's just really cool getting to travel around and see these kind of things, and shows that everywhere you look, there's going to be something worth seeing. You just sometimes have to dig for it a little bit. And even though the last pearl button manufacturing here kind of stopped around the 1960s, 70s, Muscatine still honors and remembers what happened. It's still celebrated, people make great art still out of these buttons, and they're always finding new old buttons, being ones that were made way back in the past, and bringing them back to life on brand new pieces and showing them off here so that we can still enjoy this shining piece of history.
Now, as profitable and fascinating as the pearl button industry was, you may be asking, why don't we have these today? Well, there are a couple of good reasons, and one of them being all good things must come to an end, as did the pearl button industry. Two of the huge reasons that it's gone are actually right here next to me. First of all, we have this, which is a Maytag wringer washing machine, and as technology evolved to clean clothes better and faster, the chemicals involved in the process weren't really conducive to having pearl buttons anymore. As you've seen, some of the pearl buttons could be literally works of art. They were handcrafted in some cases, designed, very intricate, and you'd have to take them off of your clothes to wash the clothes through something like this and then get them back on. Very cool, but nobody really has that much time when it comes to just washing your clothes. So that led to the second big reason we don't have pearl buttons, which is acrylic plastic buttons. These are ones that could easily stand up to the rigors of washing machines. You didn't have to take them on and off, and it just made sense. They still looked bright and shiny. They were no longer really works of art, but it got the job done, and it fastened your clothes together. But the absolute biggest reason that we don't have them anymore is, unfortunately, the over-clamming of all the mussels. As we've said, there was 300 different species. That was down to less than 150. A lot of them just weren't around anymore. You can't make buttons if there was no shells to get them out of. So who knows? If they're successful in reintroducing these mussels to the waters, maybe someday you will be able to buy pearl buttons once again. Well, that's all the time we have for today, adventurers. My name is David, and this has been Abnormal Voyages. If you enjoyed this, make sure you hit that like button, comment below where you'd like to see us go next, And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the adventures. There's also going to be a link to our Patreon if you really feel like supporting us. That'll get you access to some awesome bonus episodes and a postcard in the mail every single month. Thanks for tagging along. See you next time.